All right, welcome, good evening to the January 9th, 2018 Jonathan Board Meeting. We had no one present this evening for the open forum portion of our meeting. So with that said, I will call to order. We have designated quorum. The first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda, accept any amendments to the agenda or accept it as presented.
I would move to add the website development update to new business and do it before the management report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to add the website development presentation to the agenda this evening under new business, but do it before the management report. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have adopted the agenda. The next item on the agenda is to adopt the minutes from our last board meeting. I will entertain a motion to adopt the December minutes as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. So with that said, it looks like our first item this evening is our website development presentation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting and allowing me to...
Record, can you introduce yourself, please?
I will do that. My name is Katie Scott, and I'm with Scott and Associates. Thank you for inviting me here. And I'll tell you a little bit about our company. We have a marketing firm that's based out of Chanhassen. We've been in business for coming on 25 years. At this stage in our business, we do marketing strategy for small to mid-sized companies, and we focus on online strategies. That includes website development, design, and then online marketing. We also do other marketing things like graphic design and things like that. So anyway, I wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek of your website. It's under development, so please be aware that think of it as a house that's being built. The sheetrock's on the walls, but the paint's not on yet, and some of the fixtures aren't hung. Excuse me. Couple of the main things we wanted to do was update the look of your website to fit in with your new branding and your new image and stuff, and I think we've done a pretty nice job. We also wanted to make it accessible for residents to get information easily, and for people who are considering either visiting or moving to the neighborhood to get a feel for what your neighborhood is and what it has to offer. And we want to provide frequently requested information with fewer drawbacks and stuff. We would like to get people into the habit of going to this as a resource for any information pertaining to your neighborhood. And I'll just walk you through some of the pages on the site and see if you have any questions. This is the home page. The menus up above are, we think, the three main things on a website somebody would want to do. Here's a section for your residents, a section for documents, and then a contact us.
And we used the analytics from our existing website to see where people were going, like where was traffic going the most, to kind of pick the users and the user flow that made the most sense so that people can get to where they want the fastest.
Thank you. So we have a couple of main sections: the About Us section, news and events, amenities, and the history. Flowing down the page, we're highlighting trails and parks with a link to see more about trails and parks. We have news and events. This is a place where you can put upcoming events like your spring cleanup, or in this case, your sledding party. So it's kind of like a community page for activities for residents. The next section is the story of your community, the history of it, and we think it's really important people understand how it came to be and the thoughtfulness that went into developing the neighborhoods and making it a wonderful place to live. The bottom sitemap has things divided into 4 basic categories. These are the more basic pages on our website: board of directors, management team, committees, galleries, histories, and neighborhood maps. Then community amenities, news and events. This will highlight the top 4 or 5, or the most recent 4 or 5 blog things that have been added to your site. And then documents. I think I'll go first to the documents section, because I think it's really important. Well, actually, I'll start in the residence section.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the contrast in color, is that the color we're gonna see in the production
Yes.
version? Was there any thought about changing it from the white to the red
That's an option.
for the letters? It's just, from here, it's hard to see, but I can
Okay.
see this one, looks easier to see when you're maybe right in front of the screen.
Right.
Yep.
That's a consideration, definitely. Residents page. We think residents, the most important thing they're looking for, not the most important thing, but an important thing for them is to understand where their dues are being spent, what they're getting for their association dues. We have a section in here that explains what master and sub-associations are and how they function. We have a section for helping you find. If you don't know where your association is, you can search for it by address. And I think I have a, 11111.
Looks like you have a W after village.
Thank you. Village Road.
It's the Minnesota in there. Village.
Stockwood.
If you type your address in, this is just an example, we don't have a lot of them loaded, but you would see your street address, what's your master association, whether or not you belong to a specific neighborhood, whether or not you belong to a sub-association, and here's the most important thing, I think, is your related documents. This area right here, contact information, is going to be a link. It'll be on this page, and it'll also be on subsequent pages, but that will just be a downloadable PDF of all the numbers you could ever need to call. And that's a document. If you update it and submit a PDF, we can just switch out PDFs, but that will be shown in a couple different places. Here's an example of documents. It'll give you a list of any documents that pertain to your neighborhood, so it will have your covenants, documents like that. You can click through to a document. You can print it, download it, view it from this page. Let's see, can't read the tabs. So we think that'll be really helpful for residents. I'd like to show you the documents page. Since you have a lot of documents and no real way to keep them organized, we came up with a plan. This just displays all the documents in your library, but you can sort it by category. You can sort by document type, or you can just type in something in a search term. If I, oh, nothing matches that. If I type in board, I'll see board minutes. Here's a video. I can sort by category, board documents, and these are not all of your documents. We just have sample documents uploaded. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
Wonderful. If I'm a prospective purchaser of a property in Jonathan, one of the things that I would maybe go to the website is to look up how I could request certain documents, like a resale disclosure form. So when someone punches in their address or their prospective address, will there be a link displayed so they could obtain those
I'm sorry, obtain what type, what form?
So right now on our website, they get redirected to a third party to do what they call like a resale disclosure package. So if I'm gonna buy a house from someone in the association, I have to gather one of these and I may pay for it or someone else may pay for it? Is that something that could populate?
This, we have a link. I'm not exactly sure where that link is. I
It's
saw it
in,
earlier
yep,
today.
it's in the residence
In
section.
the residence section.
You have to be in the residence.
There is one that goes out to that site.
Yep.
Association documents, resale documents. Apply for homestead cancellation if you want architectural review. Any related content? Oops, scrolling.
When you buy your house, you have to submit the paperwork.
Oh, okay.
And that's the link to it.
That links to the.
So if
city.
your resale
Yeah.
resale documents links out to this site. And I think that's what was currently used on your site?
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Oh, that looks really good.
Thank you.
Way better than our,
Thank you
I mean, that
to
is
Clint for helping
200
pull
times
together the eye candy. What's that?
200 times, but the pictures alone, I mean, the whole
Yeah.
presentation of it's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's very good.
We can
not-
send out the link to you guys for like beta testing before we go live
Yeah,
at
that'd
the
be
end of the
cool.
month. So
Play
then
around
you
a little
can
bit.
check stuff out and
And we're
Mine's-
hoping to have, we're still uploading documents. We're hoping to have all documents uploaded that we have so far, uploaded by the end of next week. And it should be ready for testing then. But you could start beta testing forms and stuff now. If you let me know whose email address to put in the thing right now, the developer's email address is, all the contact forms go to her. There's a contact form, a general contact form for the whole site. There's also another contact form that is specifically for reporting or asking questions of board members. Or like reporting, what do you call those, repair and
request for
service?
action.
Yes.
We have a couple of them.
Gotta be here somewhere.
The coordinator between us and finance,
Another quick question, since we're at that time period right now.
I mean, he
If I wanted to pay my dues,
closely with them.
is there a portal through this website?
Not at this time.
So, right now, people can go to the Gaston website and then they can click on the portal. Can we embed the link to that
Absolutely.
with the same look like it came from us, I guess?
Yeah, I think that was gonna be one of the side links for this page as well. So the residence page will be all encompassing for links on that right sidebar for where you need to go for important documents. And then if you scroll up a little bit above the related content, up there is where we're putting all of those links that go off to third-party sites that residents can use.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank
looks
you.
great.
I don't really have a question. I would just like to point out that it's clear that you have taken it top of mind who the user will be for this site. And it's great to see that, you know, obviously people are keeping our residents top of mind when they're trying to identify what the most valuable items that should be included in a website, and it definitely shows. I'm excited to play around with it, and
Okay.
we appreciate you for your efforts, and thank you, Clint,
Um,
Clint and
Clint-
Carrie for
Clint provided excellent direction for us.
helping us with this, so.
Can you upload videos to this too?
Yeah, there's already one on there.
Oh, we can't.
Well, you probably can,
Upload what?
but if you want to.
A video?
Can you upload
I
it?
usually do them
Link
just through
to a video,
YouTube,
yeah.
but you could,
Oh, you could, yeah.
because YouTube compresses the video so it's not as big.
Okay,
Oh,
like when we had our celebration, kind of fun.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Link
have
to a
a-
video on your YouTube channel could be part of, like, in the news and upcoming events. You can
Right.
also use that section to show how much fun you had at your 4th of
Well,
July.
that's what I'm saying, yeah, to upload videos from
Yeah.
kids, yeah, exactly.
I do have a general question. So we heard that by the end of next week, look to have documents uploaded. Will the website be live by our annual meeting?
Yes. And that's what I think Carrie is giving the information to, did you give Mike's information over?
Yep, he called me today. but we
Okay.
Played phone tag, so just emailed him tonight to call me in the morning, so.
That's your current host? Okay, perfect.
So the launch date is what? I must have missed that, I'm sorry.
Launch date, we're hoping, it will be by the end of this month.
So prior to February 1st.
Right.
I would like to see it happen sooner than the 11th hour, so we're doing what we
Yeah.
can. Anything else?
Is this the first time this is just a question, general for you, have you worked with a homeowner association before on a website, or is this kind of a first for your
This is
firm?
our first.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like you guys have done this before.
Well,
It's a compliment, so.
Everybody seems to have the same challenge, identifying an audience, speaking in a language that's most clear and comfortable for that audience, and then fewest clicks to the end game.
Yeah.
After a successful launch,
I did.
the list of all the sub-associations are on our website.
Yeah.
Make your calls.
Yeah, there's your sales plan for the year.
Seriously.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the management report. It looks like Carrie, I'll let you kind of start off.
Yep, first item was the annual meeting, kind of updated you guys. Let's see here, I can't read my own writing. It's very bright in here today. There is a draft that's gonna be put in the Herald that we put in for every annual meeting. That is on page 6. If you need or want any changes, let me know. That will go out the first week in February. And then also, I mailed you guys a list of all the mailing addresses that will be sent out, that we have printed on labels to be sent out by the end of the month. So the annual will go out no later than January 26th. So, any questions about the annual mailing or anything? All right, next is the sign on Alexander Circle that was destroyed by a vehicle. The sign was hit on New Year's Eve, and there's some pictures enclosed, as you all have seen. I contacted the person who hit the sign's insurance company, and they said that we can fix it any time. It will be covered 100%. We have unlimited time to fix it. So Kirk wanted to call some contractors now already to get it fixed as soon as possible, but just depending on the weather, it might take a little bit, but we'll get it fixed as soon as we can. And Vern was gonna take all that brick away today when it was warm out, and so we'll get it fixed as soon as we can.
Is that person here right now?
No,
Yeah.
you're not the person
Oh,
who,
no, I'm not gonna do that.
but he's the person who wanted to, yes,
It's in my front yard,
yes.
Oh,
so I have a little
goodness,
bit
yeah.
to discuss, but, oh.
So our open forum it started at 6:30. We went on with our meeting.
I took a nice walk up to the John Association, I was waiting and waiting. and I thought,
Uh-oh,
I bet it's not here, so I ran home, I got here as fast as I could.
My apologies for that. In respect of your time, I will let you know that during an active board meeting, typically there is no opportunity for, resident feedback or suggestion or meeting time.
Okay. When would be a time to discuss? I have a proposal I'd like to discuss, I think I can email.
yep, me.
There's some other stuff with this whole sign area that.
Sure,
That I've been thinking about that couple of years.
sure.
Where would be the forum for the forum?
Open forum is definitely a time to do that.
A request, he could put a request.
That-
He could send a request.
Yeah, he could do a board action for request.
Like a
We do
request
have,
form.
we do have a request for action that
Yes.
residents can submit. Carrie has a copy of that, so what you can do is you can put that in, and it'll be in our board packet.
Yes.
So at future meetings, that's something that will be automatically added into our agenda. But it's something in the meantime where you can absolutely work through Carrie on that. Unfortunately, that's just how things go. But we appreciate, you coming here and making time out of your busy life to talk with us.
Good walking.
You can send that stuff to me too with your request. You can send that stuff with your request to me.
Okay, so I'll just go onto the website and fill out the
Or
request.
email me, either way. Yep.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Apologize, Wood.
So
Any
question about the
question-
sign in the meantime?
I'm sorry, what was that?
In the meantime, is the sign gonna be staked, so it's back
It
up?
is
Or will it
staked.
stay?
It's just on a stake right now, with the
Okay.
ground being frozen, there's not a whole lot more we can do, so hopefully we can get it fixed as soon as possible.
Temporary repair, there's a
Yep.
prop there, and
Yep.
I kind of started to pick up some of the bricks that were
Right
blowing.
on Winter
Yeah.
Park, west
You
of
can read the sign, but it's not that no more.
Yeah,
Okay, I will do that. Thank
okay,
you very much.
thanks.
like cul-de-sacs west of Bavaria.
In the,
All right, so the person that reported this, have we been in contact with that person?
Yep,
Okay.
and the insurance company, and I have a claim number and everything, they said it's, all we have to do is submit the invoice when it's done.
Interesting. Has an adjuster been out at all?
That's what I asked her, I mean, like, do you need copies of, like, a scope or anything like that? She said, nope, just when the work is finished, send an invoice.
Yeah, typically
That was the insurance
it
company.
sounds, I mean, obviously it's hearsay, right? We take them for their word, or it's a situation where we kind of have to dig a little deeper a little bit, because to me, it sounds a little fishy,
Okay,
and people can weigh in on this matter, but typically how I've seen it done is, you typically have to have someone from that insurance company come out to assess the damage,
sure.
and then they put a value to it.
I think they did with the person, because it's their, obviously their insurance company, I think they came out with them, but they didn't give me any paperwork or anything, so I can call back tomorrow again and ask them about that. All they
Yeah,
do is
I
give me
would, I would recommend that you get it in writing,
okay,
you know, what their allowance is up to.
yeah. I asked them that too, and they said there was no allowance, which,
But we have nothing in writing from them.
no, just a
Yeah,
claim
we need-
number.
Yeah, we need some actual,
Yeah.
more than a claim. And perhaps, like, I think you were going there, Justin, once we determine a bid that we want to go with, we submit that for pre-approval. I think that's a good idea.
Did he say he was already picking up the debris?
Well, I think
think
I
he
heard him say
started
that
to-
the bricks are blowing across the lawn, is I think what he
Is
said.
that what he said?
He just placed the bricks back to the.
I mean, I'd hate to mess with, tamper that area if it hasn't been properly,
Right,
especially if they haven't taken pictures.
right. Well, we have pictures.
We have pictures,
lots.
so.
So,
I think we just want to avoid the pitfall that we had with the bridge. Sometimes,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Anything else on that? Nope. Want me to move on?
Yep.
Okay. The other thing was the underpasses. We had talked about those. John had brought those up in the past in maintaining them. I did contact Brian Jung with the city, and on page 8 was his response. He said that those tunnels were put in due to our trail system, and that's why they are our responsibility. He did email me back yesterday and said that he remembered that one of the tunnels on Bavaria by Von Hertzen Circle was rebuilt and in good shape. Gosh, I don't know what that means. I can forward this to you. He just sent this to me yesterday. The concrete box culvert, though, that's on East Stone Creek Drive was installed in 2007. Gets inspected every 2 years. This crossing is now considered a bridge, and they are required to perform the inspection, so Jonathan is not responsible for that one anymore.
What bridge is that?
He said the tunnel that's by Stone Creek Drive, you know where Stone Creek is, right off of 100 Mark? It's like some townhomes there.
Oh, yeah.
There's that tunnel there, he said, so that's considered now a bridge, so they're responsible to get the inspections done on those. And then he gave me a name of an inspecting company that they use to inspect underpasses.
So the underpass in question that John brought up a few times is in fact a city underpass.
I
But it's
think the one
on,
he was bringing up, I guess I don't know what you
the
remember.
one
which
that's right on Bavaria and close to Pioneer,
I think that's by neighborhood 10, I think that's the one that he's in question with.
and
But-
that's a city underpass according to this map?
Yes, correct.
Because that's
It's
the one
that
that,
blue dot there,
so
yeah.
what's interesting is that, it's a Jonathan Trail leading up to a city underpass, and then starting Jonathan
I
Trail
think because
again.
it connects with the city trail behind
So it-
neighborhood 10 there, I'm guessing that's why.
Yeah. I guess what I'm thinking is, so that we have our Ts crossed a little bit is, so obviously this is enough for me to say that we have a memorandum of understanding, but it seems to me like maybe we should go a little bit further. And I don't know what the rest of us think about that. We have an email, we have confirmation, but
And I did ask him if there was anything in writing, and he said not to his knowledge, so.
So maybe
Do we-
we could.
do we want something drawn up like
Sure we
this,
do.
or
Why not?
we just pay for an attorney to do it?
Yep.
Oh,
Good question for you. So are we to infer that if the city inspects it, that it is fixed at the city's expense?
I'm assuming.
But if we inspect it,
Oh, no.
it's
I'd
fixed at
have
our
to get
expense?
clarification on that, but from what he wrote in this, I would guess so, because he said that Jonathan would no longer have to inspect that bridge. So I'm
I'm just
assuming,
worried that in the event that it's inspected and it is deficient at that time, you know, what's the next steps? And then when that one was rebuilt in 2007, who paid for it then?
Not us.
I'm guessing that.
I'm sure there's answers to all these questions, but it would be good to have it documented. Is that Justin, are you making it a board directive that?
he's looking
I think what would be nice here is to have some support from a director on the board to kind of work with Carrie and the management team on some of these conversations. This is a situation where I think John Hayes would definitely jump in, but he's he's not here tonight. I think the biggest thing here is to make sure that we are mitigating any sort of risk. And that's the most important thing. So that if we understand that they inspect it, but at the end of the day, it's on our property or something like that, to me, that would have to be ironed out further. I don't know, Carrie, what is your recommendation? Is this something that you think you can move forward with on your own, or would you like some support from the board?
I mean, obviously support's always good. Otherwise, I'm sure Kirk would help me with it, but I think getting a MOA written up is probably the smartest thing, just for future boards. Just so we have something in writing. I wish the city would have something, so we could go buy something, but he said they didn't have anything, so.
It seems like the city is
Yes.
comfortable with it being a certain case that it is. I don't know what the rest of us think about that, but it doesn't seem like they're all too interested in trying to understand which underpass they are responsible for, whether or not it's on a Jonathan trail.
Right.
I think it's a conversation, first and foremost, versus just making the assumption that we should have something drawn up. So I think if we were to communicate with the city to let them know that, hey, an underpass that you are responsible for inspecting is on our property, there could be a situation there, there could be an issue. So if we bring that up and make it evident that both sides should make sure that they weigh in and understand the risk and mitigate that as best as possible, I think that might be a good conversation point.
Okay.
So he's stating that he's not aware of any other agreements when we made these tunnels?
No.
That's what he said.
So we just went to the city and said, hey, we're gonna dig underneath your road.
Right,
Cool.
exactly. I mean, I'm sure it was back in the 70s or whenever, but,
Before all our time.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
just
and I don't know.
lack of.
Maybe it's contained within a developer agreement?
Yeah, it could be.
Right.
It's gotta be, right?
It's gotta be where it's at, yeah.
Yeah,
Should do a title search
it's somewhere.
of some
but
sort.
It's digging underneath city roads, I'm sure.
This to me sounds like a kind of an action group, in my opinion. It seems like not a committee, but a task force.
Carrie, so can I ask a question then? So you talked to Brian first, and he gave you all the information, and then after the fact, he called you and informed you about this one. What made him check that out? How did he figure that out?
I don't know. I emailed him on, the same day and asked him if he had a company that they used that kind of does safety checks on their underpasses, and then that's when he emailed me back and said, oh, by the way, this one was done in 2007, considered a bridge, so.
Might be good to have a sit-down meeting with him.
Yeah, we need to have,
Take him out for coffee or lunch.
yeah.
or
Okay.
meet him
We
somewhere.
can start there. Kirk and I can sit down with him.
I feel like if you would even said 5 tunnels, you should have been like, hey, how many tunnels do we have? You've been like,
Right.
I feel like you just piggybacked off what you said. Sure, there's 5.
Right.
Well, my comments. Aren't they the red dots?
And I'd be curious to know what the definition of a bridge versus a tunnel is.
Yeah, I don't
I
understand
know
that
what
either.
that means.
Because I'm trying to think.
Bridge is wood,
This one.
tunnels,
Tony is right here.
I don't know.
Maybe one's bearing the weight of the road and one's not.
Is it the, not the bridge under 212, or 41 there?
Nope, it's the one by,
Quick
well,
Trip?
I think it's the one by
Oh.
Stone Creek there. He said that's now considered a bridge.
Gosh, I don't know where that was.
Is that the one like Quick Trip?
Nope.
Between the two
Off
lakes?
100 Mark,
That's a tunnel.
like before Lake
I
Grace.
think that would be a bridge, because there's
There's a
wooden
bridge.
supports
There
underneath that
is.
support the road.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And a road goes over it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, wood or cement, right?
Yeah, this one he says is Stone Creek Drive, which is between Village and Bavaria on 100 Mark. Like if you look on this map on page 9, there's a blue dot that goes down to Lake Grace, and then it's the next one, I believe, is the one that's right by Stone Creek Drive.
And that's a concrete one.
Yeah.
I've been under that one.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, bridge and,
We'll ask him that.
bridge
too.
and,
But those two are the same, I believe they're pretty much the same thing, the blue one and the pink one next to it.
that's.
Right.
They're pretty much the
Well,
same.
isn't one wood
No,
though?
the blue one goes down to the trail to Lake Grace.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
pink one is coming off a trail, which I don't understand how that's a bridge.
Right,
The other one, I can understand that because there's vehicles going down there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
not over the tunnel though.
And I'm thinking.
Oh, no,
I'm
it's
thinking
underneath the road.
construction-
It goes-
Underneath the road.
Yeah, the construction of the two are the same.
right.
They both go to the road. They're both made of concrete.
I think that one's made wood.
I think this one's wood.
The blue one?
I think
or the-
what he would be saying, Stefan, is even though it's Jonathan property, the city is responsible for inspecting it because it's considered a bridge. So it's a jurisdiction issue.
Structure thing.
So which is interesting because
What's the difference between a bridge and an under, like, what's?
it's their definition. They're saying that because it's a bridge in their mind, it gets inspected by the city, but it's not it's our property, which is interesting. That's where you have this ambiguity here of if it's Jonathan's and the city's inspecting it, at the end of the day, they're not responsible for inspecting it. They're saying they are. I mean, obviously, they're a city government. It's different than us just saying that we're responsible because it's our property. It's the city government that's responsible for maintaining the integrity and the safety of our community. But there's still a lot of questions here that need to be ironed out.
Are they doing their own inspections, cities?
They are.
They do. yeah.
Okay.
Well, they have a company that comes out and does it. Stantec, that's what they use.
Yeah, the thing that brought this all up, just for historical perspective and context, was that trail down by neighborhood 10, where there's a retaining wall. It's right off of Bavaria and Pioneer Trail. It was put in roughly 10 years ago or 11 years ago, and we were wondering if that was a Jonathan responsibility or a city responsibility. Here, the city is saying that it's a city underpass. So that question is essentially answered. But now it's like, well, even though it's a city underpass, is Jonathan still responsible because it's our property?
Right,
Technically, it's underneath a road. We don't own the road,
right.
so it's
That's what I
very-
asked him originally, and he said, but the reason the tunnel was put there was for the trail system. So that's why it would be Jonathan responsibility, because like the 5 that we're responsible for are really 4. It's Jonathan Trailway, and they were put there for the trailway, and that's why they're our responsibility.
But the city's saying it's their responsibility.
Just for the one,
Yeah.
yeah. The other 4.
Because that one connects to their city trails.
The one that, it's the one that they technically said is a bridge now.
Okay.
And then the one by neighborhood 10 connects to their trails.
I think the one that was of some concern that people had was the underpass built out of timbers underneath Village Road.
Right.
That one's, I don't like that
And
one
that's one that I know in our reserve study, Mr. Hayes brought up the fact that, how do you inspect that? How do you ensure that it continues to be safe for our residents? It is in fact ours, which is again interesting because it's
Right.
underneath a road and so is the one in Bavaria, but we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yep. Okay, well, we'll meet with them and then report to you guys after we meet.
Sounds like a good board research topic to put on our website. So maybe compile everything and
I think we should make that a board directive, in my opinion, to meet with the city and to get a plan together.
publish a board research document.
Yeah, so a board director to meet with the city, get a plan, and to put together a report of research on the topic.
Okay.
I have a question. Do we have a plan if something happens to their bridge and we have a trail under it and they have to rip up the bridge? Who's responsible for, do we know that? I mean, is that already written down?
We don't know
No,
that.
That's not done.
Nothing's
Okay.
been ironed out.
Okay. Well, that'd be good to know.
Yes,
Because it could be something we hadn't planned on for money.
right.
Absolutely. Sorry, Carrie, please go ahead and continue.
All right, the next thing was the asset schedule, which is included on page 10. Basically, I just put in the old inventory list of everything from the Karen House and things that were added. And then also out in the barn, everything that's out there as far as equipment. There are some things that are not in working order, and Vern's either getting rid of them or is in the process of getting rid of them, or taking them apart to use for parts. Like say if it's a blower or something, he's taking them apart for that reason. That's why they're still in there. Otherwise, everything else should be updated as far as like if it was replaced or if it was taken away. Any questions about that?
And you did say that you think it's a typo with the chainsaws,
Yes.
11 of them?
I do.
Can you confirm if that was or not?
Yep.
That's a lot of,
What page is
between
that
the
on?
11 chainsaws and the other chainsaws we have, that's like 17
Yeah,
chainsaws.
okay, here.
We're gonna start our own, tree cutting company here.
Or start juggling them.
Or start juggling, yeah, that's even impressive, yeah.
One recommendation that I'd make after reviewing the list of items on here is to revisit the methodology that's used to list items on the asset schedule. Typically, if there's a certain monetary value, or if there's a serial number, things like that, you wanna record those. But some of these things like curtains, magazine rack, clock, I'm sure those are of nominal value. It might be a little easier to maybe have a written procedure or policy of what we record. And then my concern on the flip side of that is in the barn area, and then also down at the pavilion. There might be things that are of high dollar value, like racks, or,
Sure.
you know, there's big, huge steel racks that are hundreds and hundreds of dollars that should be on an asset schedule.
Okay.
And then my last point I'd make is that there should be, if a piece of equipment has reached its useful life, there should be a process that's undertaken, whether it be donating it, selling it, disposing of it.
Do you know if we have, our garden hoses or anything on here? I don't see those.
You know, they're probably all down in the pavilion, and I'll have him do a pavilion inventory too.
Yeah, I would do
know
that,
there's-
I know, I'm assuming we had to purchase more when we redid our pavilion
Yep,
for the grassy area.
all down there, so I'll have him do that too.
I'd put those on there.
Sprinklers, stuff like that.
Yep.
You know, Stefan, I think you have some good ideas in terms of, you know, writing something written. I'm always a fan of having something written, so it's formal, everyone knows how, you know, how to follow it. I think that's something that our board should consider to, you know, kind of work concurrently with our day-to-day efforts, so.
And I will add it to the calendar of events too, maybe to do this annually.
Okay.
You guys think like this is a good time of the year,
Oh, yeah, I would imagine it's probably a great time of year to do this type of stuff.
Yeah.
or? Okay,
I do
January,
inventory
February?
in winter. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I, Carrie, do we, do we need to look at potentially, we still got the dirt bucket for Bobcat. I know we can use the sweeper on the new tool, or on the new, Kubota.
Yep.
Is there certain things in here that maybe we need to revisit on maybe trying to sell?
Yeah,
Because I see some more, I know we were able to trade in a few things, but I see some more things on this list, which is awesome.
yep,
In a good way, we have the inventory now.
absolutely.
So I feel like some of this stuff we probably don't need.
Yep, the sweeper we thought we could use, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
we-
work, so.
Okay, it doesn't work, okay.
No.
So there's a few things on here we could probably trade in and look at, and maybe
Okay.
I can talk with you and see what we
Yeah,
got.
definitely, when spring or whenever you have time to come over.
And then my suggestion is that once a value is determined, you know, who makes the determination of what we're gonna sell it for? I just don't wanna see a bunch of these potentially high dollar value items go for $1, or go for $10 or $1,000, or,
Right,
you know, we need to get fair market value for it.
sure.
So I guess I'd be interested to see what that process looks like internally that Gaston uses
Okay,
when it comes to disposing of assets.
I think the Jonathan Board should also consider enacting our own policy for how we'd like this process to play out. Obviously, we can rely on Gaston for all of their institutional expertise, but I think at the end of the day, I think this board is somewhat responsible for putting in place a policy that allows people to get the job done effectively. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if we should get a working session on the calendar, if it's something that, it might be a good time to do that, but, you know, obviously, we'll try to maybe work offline, let me think about that a little more, and don't be surprised if we try to get something on the calendar to get together on this. But I'd like to organize some effort and focus and thoughts around putting together policy, because that's, again, I think a big part of what we need to keep on doing is really focusing on policy, procedure, and process here with this board.
Right now, is the purchasing process, is it something that's, somebody approaches you and they kind of ask what they need and you just kind of go forward with it? Is there an actual form we fill out or anything like that?
for what, for a?
For a purchase, let's say a chainsaw, if you want to purchase this chainsaw, is there like a form we fill out for that or anything, or is it just?
I mean,
Okay.
basically, anything under 2,500, we have to go to our manager for, which is
Right.
Kirk, and get permission.
Okay.
Anything over $250.
Okay,
2,500.
What was that?
2,500.
Well, 250
Oh, for
to use
your
the credit card.
immediate
Just,
supervisor.
yeah, just to like get explanation for it, but 2,500, then it goes to the board.
This topic has been on my mind for a while, and I think, again, having policy written down, because
Yep.
policy only goes so far when it's written word, spoken word, but I think for future boards, for, you know, future management personnel and staff, they need to have an idea of, you know, what our standards are. So again, that's why I think it's important that we consider putting together purchasing policies or something of that nature, how we go about managing our inventory and assets, and so on and so forth, so.
not to get off subject a little bit, you said the brush sweeper does not work on the Kubota?
Well, it fits, but it's something with the attachments.
Okay,
It
so
wouldn't spin or something.
I have an email documentation form, so this is something we can talk about, from Landa saying that that would work on there. So if that's not the case, we need to talk with
Okay,
Landa and say, hey, you gave us some incorrect information, that's
Right.
that's not good,
I'll
so.
get the final from Vern, why it didn't work, but I think it was something with the
Yeah,
attachments.
because,
and
I
then-
mean, that's something that they told us it would, and
Yep,
that's a big,
exactly.
it's a big no-no if it's not. So that might be something we can go back to them and say, okay, what attachments do you need to get us, since you said it was gonna work,
Yep,
to make this thing work? Does that make sense?
yep, absolutely.
Good work, though, all in
Yeah.
all.
It's a good start.
Thanks, yep.
I'll find that email too, because I'm pretty positive he said that was a,
Yeah, he did. I
that was a go.
Good. All right. Find where I was here. Here we go. I think that's actually it with the management report. That covers it all. For that part of it.
I suppose we've been getting 2018 dues in. Any
Yes.
status on that?
Lots.
Going well?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are sent directly, but a lot of them drop off at my office too, or people have just been calling and checking. If people send in their check to, with the given envelope, it does take like 2 to 3 weeks to process, because it goes to the bank, then it goes to gas and accounting, so it takes a while to hit their account. So I've had a lot of phone calls, people saying I paid on December 18th and it still doesn't hit, but they're all hitting now. So I had about 3 today, and they all hit yesterday or today, so some hit Friday. So it just depends how, but just so people know, if they did send it in, it does take a little longer than if they just directly give it to the.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So why does it take 3 weeks?
I really don't know. I think it's because it goes through, you know, like when you do online pay or bill pay and stuff, and it goes through into like a third party.
I'm just wondering, like, for the checks when they get mailed to the lockbox.
Yeah, I'd have to get clarification from Kirk or someone on that, because I'm not really sure how that works. But I know I was told that in the past from Natalie, that it does take longer because of the process, because
Yeah.
you would think it'd be faster because it's going directly to the bank, but it goes to the bank and then it has to go back to Gaston or something through accounting before it hits their account.
So this is something I've followed for the last couple of years. Myself, I had an issue where I sent a check in, and then it didn't get posted, and so I lost my voting rights one year, even though the check was sent well ahead of time. So this year I actually tracked it, and it actually was deposited on the same day that my bill pay said I was gonna be delivered. But it was 6 business days from the time I put it in my bank. You know, my bank was supposed to send it. But it brings an issue of people's voting rights that I'm gonna push forward again here, is that there has to be a process where if it's received by a certain date, that these people won't lose their voting rights. Having a 3-week lag time, to me, is unacceptable. You know, there should be a service level agreement with the bank.
Okay.
So between Klein Bank and, you know, it's Gasson, who our account's registered with, that it would be processed within X number of hours from being received.
Okay.
Or X number of days, business days. So the whole, you know, taking it from the lockbox, sending it to the Gasson, then back to the bank to make a deposit, something doesn't seem right there.
Right.
Because a lockbox typically is, the bank processes it, they assign it, and it gets posted. Now, there are errors, and those have to be worked out through exception, and maybe that's what the issue is, that there's a few that have exceptions. But this has been an ongoing issue for at least the last 2 years.
Okay, well, it's something that, for future years, you know, we need to improve. It sounds to me like there's a gap, right?
Right.
And that's something that, the reason why we got elected to the board is to improve our association, and that's one thing, another area I think that we could do that, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, in some way, we need to improve the process. Now, I understand that Rome isn't built in a day. There might not be an opportunity to improve it right now, but we need to be thinking long-term. So,
I'll definitely connect with Kirk tomorrow, and I'll have him email you, like, the process exactly,
sure.
and why it takes long.
Yeah, and I would ask you, you know, to determine, or to kind of evaluate and assess if there's something that you think that would help speed up the process, then I think that's something that you should work on and present to us, and we definitely need to improve that, move the needle.
Okay.
And if you need a specimen to examine, I'll be happy to forward you my banking information.
Okay.
Account number?
No.
Password?
Routing?
Just the check.
How about your social security number?
Date of birth?
Mother's maiden name?
But it worked. It was the day it was delivered, posted within 1 day, so,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking the answer might be there's exception issues, but
Sure.
I don't know. Be nice to know facts.
Yeah, and Carrie, don't see it as it's broke, or
Right.
something
No,
like
I get
that.
it.
It's just a situation where we see an area for improvement.
Yep.
And that's what we want to try to help, is how can this board improve processes and situations? We're not saying, oh, it's broke, we need to start all over. It's nothing like that.
No, I get it, and it's
So-
something internally, but they have to figure it out.
Okay.
So, yep.
Well, if it happened to you, it's probably happening to others, and they're not even aware of it. Because I don't track that stuff.
Mine was deposited, and it was quick.
Yeah.
So, it seems to me like there are some issues that
Right,
might.
maybe certain banks are different, I don't know. Anything else on that?
All right, so moving on from the management report, under unfinished business, on page 22, we have our park violation policy. Stefan, if you want to outline, I'm not sure exactly what we need to discuss here. Oh, okay, it looks like it's some letters.
Yeah, sure. This was a takeaway item. So last month, the board approved the violation policy update. Carrie updated it on paper. It's good to go. A takeaway from last meeting was we needed to work through the letter templates. Carrie did a fantastic job of compiling those. We just wanted to present that to you and open up for any questions, comments, concerns. Otherwise, this is what Carrie's gonna use going forward. And then the titles at the top of the page coincide with the actual written policy. So no action needed as far as voting goes on the policy, that's done already, but we're taking comments on the letters. Otherwise, we would like to conclude this task that was given to us.
Can this be posted on our website?
Yes, it was written so that it would be very transparent, and it will be issued with letters. If the board chooses to do so, they can post it on the website. But yeah, it was absolutely written with transparency in mind.
Yeah, I think it should be posted on our website.
Absolutely. Provides a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Well done.
So you want the violation policy and examples of letters, or just the policy?
I would say that the board may want the policy, the letters, they'll receive those in the mail if they violated it.
Yeah.
I think so.
Tell them when they get them.
I don't think the templates are
Yeah,
necessary.
there's nothing in the letter that they wouldn't have
Right.
in the policy.
But Carrie did a good job putting these together. Of course, she would fill in the templates as necessary, but they're presented there for you.
Yeah, it looks a lot more clarification, looks cleaner and
Yep.
it's good.
And then the copy of the policy will be given with the letter as the board had wished.
All right?
Thank you. We'll
Thanks.
consider it done.
Thank you, Stefan.
Okay.
Page 27, so this came back out, if memory serves me right, last month, we made a decision to reject any memorandum of acceptance or understanding as it relates to utilizing the city of Chaska, video conferencing and cable, resources. So what we have here is the city would like, beyond a month-to-month, they're looking for a little bit more of a midterm solution. One idea I had is to try to work and identify, first of all, we need to understand when, reality-wise, is it possible for us to look at utilizing our Karen House for board meetings?
That's the biggest thing, yeah. We gotta get that locked down.
And at the same time, we have to make sure that we, continue working with a partner in the city of Chaska, utilizing their services here. So I would look for the board to weigh in on any creative ideas you might have for trying to come up with a solution.
I think you started, we need to lock down the Karen House and when we're gonna get this stuff, get it ready for us to go in there. I think that needs to be the first step, correct? Do we have a plan in place?
Has the scope been developed? Is that what you're-
That's, I guess,
We
yeah.
had an engineer come out, and there was a scope developed, and that's the farthest it's been. And that was in the transition of Natalie, so, we have to contact this engineer. She's also doing the Idle House, so she has a scope for both. So now we have to decide, do we want to send this scope out to get bids? So,
When will the board be presented with the scope?
I can present it next month. Start.
Okay, so
Yeah, I think if we get a
30
scope,
days, scope, another 30 days to get bids essentially, another 30 days for mobilization and completion, maybe another 15 days. So now we're at
April,
100, we're at
March.
105 days.
June, yeah.
And we have 6 more months then of presumably working and doing our board meetings here at City Hall. So month to month obviously isn't an ideal situation that our supplier is looking to give us, so. I
Is
don't
it
know.
feasible to
What do we
approach it with
do?
a 6-month?
What do we do here?
If we lock in a date, that's a,
I don't know.
Well, why can't she send the scope to us by email? And then we can view it ahead of time. Is that
Um,
not feasible?
No, that would, we have to make sure that, you know, that's something that we would have in an open board meeting. Or at a board meeting. There's a reason why we have board meetings, and there's a reason why we have executive committee that can make decisions on behalf of the
Well,
board.
I'm not saying make a decision.
You're saying so we can look at it, so then we can make a decision right away
Yes.
instead of dancing
That's-
around for an hour and a half?
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Not to make a decision, but that we know ahead of time, so we don't waste time to,
Yeah?
So we could read it, and then the presentation will still take place
Right.
at next month's meeting.
Yeah, so if you have a scope of work,
Fire that out.
feel free to send that out at any time.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And the other thing is, so they're asking for a 90-day written notice to terminate. I would say once we decide what we're gonna do at Karen House and get a bid we like, we will know time-wise. I mean, at that point, you could give them a 90-day notice.
We don't have any agreement signed right now.
Yeah.
So the 90-day means nothing. Basically, how this would work out, and this is just thinking out loud, but we'd have a 6-month term, and in 3 months from now, we would give 90 days notice. That's an idea,
Yeah.
but like I said, I just,
They want an annual agreement, right?
a more defined agreement beyond month to month is more desirable.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we enter into a 6-month agreement with a provision to renew for 6 months with 60 days notice? So we'll lock them up for 6 months and meet them halfway. But we'll have a right to renew for an additional 6 months in case our project gets delayed. And then we could authorize the president to negotiate the details, but, I mean, the value of this contract's like under $1,000, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanna make that a board directive, or should we?
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the president to negotiate a 6-month agreement with the city to utilize the city council chambers with an option, with our option to renew for an additional 6 months.
All right, I have a
Up to a
motion.
value of $1,500.
And a 60-day
Termination
termination
timeframe.
notice or something.
I was gonna leave that, that's the end of my motion. I'll leave that up to the president to negotiate that.
Okay,
That way he doesn't have to come back to us if they want 90 days.
okay.
But
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. So that's something that will, my intention, thank you, fellow board members, for enacting me or giving me the opportunity. I'll work close with Carrie on that, and I'll also look to have that completed by our next board meeting. All right, Garden Plot Committee. So John Hayes, who is our chair, is not here this evening. We do have 3 of us in attendance this evening. If it's okay with Kay and Judy, I'll start out with kind of giving the status and updates, and I'll let you guys weigh in on kind of where we're going with this in terms of our recommendations. But we did meet via conference call this past week to discuss the garden plots offered to members of our association. We really started off by discussing the history of the topic before working to identify overall what the overall objectives should be for this committee. The one thing that we did kind of talk about in terms of status and whatnot is to understand that the committee acknowledges that the amenity is great for homeowners who in fact do not have a traditional yard. It is also noted that Chaska is one of the only cities in the area that does not offer a community-wide garden. So really, for us, is before any final recommendation can be made on the future of the garden plots, as I know some people think that we should consider not having garden plots, is really trying to find a forum and an opportunity for our members to engage with the board and provide feedback. So what that means is, I think, for us, some of it is trying to have more engagement from our members, for them to really get to us and say that, yeah, it is a valued amenity. I think we definitely have utilization, but when people put it in perspective, there's about between 17 and 24 people who utilize these garden plots. And I think for us is we're just trying to identify whether or not it's a valued amenity and if it's worth the expense in maintaining these garden plots for members. So I'll just kind of go through our objectives here. Like I said, the understanding if it's a valued amenity by members. Kay and Judy, I think Judy, you actually talked about this, or maybe it was Kay, but what needs to be done in 2018 for our garden plots. Judy, do you have anything to weigh in on?
Well, we were each given a project or job to do, to come back, and Kay and I did that. And, yeah, I guess we just have to wait and see what our residents, if they're interested. Would you agree?
So do we communicate to the residents what we're looking to do, or how is that?
So that's one of our recommendations is our committee needs to really try to reach out to community members and try to get them to serve on this committee and help be a guiding force for us. Because obviously it's a topic that we could go round and round on it because there are a lot of reasons to have it, and there are some points that get brought up that say, well, you know, of a community of 8,000 residents, between, you know, a couple dozen people are using it, does that justify the expense? So there are some valid points that are brought up in the process of trying to assess these garden plots, and we need more help. We need more support and outreach from members to help us understand if it's, you know, what can be done with it. Or do we have, you know, a smaller amount of garden plots to kind of to lower the operating expense associated with it? But I do think that it is something, and the committee thought it was something that we should continue researching.
Do we
especially
know-
knowing that,
But like your question was, yes, we did address that. They thought they'd go on the website, we'd go in the newsletter, but we aren't gonna send out postcards.
Right. Do we know how many residents know the garden plots exist? Because when I moved here, didn't know they existed until I got on this board. So is it a lack of visibility systematically,
Well, it has
billboard,
been, it has
pictures?
been in the newsletter a
Okay.
few times, that
'Cause
people read it.
When I drive by that area, there's no signage saying there's garden plots down there off the road. There's nothing that directs you to, there's, you know, there's a sign for the hill, but there's not a sign for garden plots. So I'm just throwing this out loud. You know, is there something systematically or visually that would improve people taking advantage of that?
but even so, there are roughly 40 plots available.
Yes.
So 40 plots, you know, for us investing in, you know, funds available for that garden plot out of 8,000 residents, I can see why some people have the thought that we should be in the garden plot business.
No, I don't just, I'm not
Yeah, it's
saying
just
right or wrong or
speaking
different.
out
I'm just
loud.
saying, since we have that many vacancies, how many people really understand that it's there or know it's there? That's my point I'm trying to make.
So the 17 people are using all the plots, or close to that many, because they're using larger plots. It's getting utilized, which is good, but it's a cost-benefit analysis, is really what it comes down to.
I have two questions. First question is there ever been a year that you can recall in your 3 years that there's been more applicants than there are spots? Meaning, have we ever turned anyone away saying that, oh, we're all reserved?
No, but last year it was full. The first year was probably half, and this year is about 3/4.
So my second point I was gonna make is that we have a full-time gardener who does a very good job at gardening. Perhaps one of our strategies to increase usage is that this year we could have our gardener do maybe a sample garden, and we can take photographs throughout, like, once a week. And I know that she may be interested in almost teaching a little seminar or helping people on, you know, 1 hour per week, kind of like Garden with the Gardener.
A garden class or something
Garden
like that.
club.
That's a great point.
And then this year, we could use all of that data, if you will, or by data, I mean like, she could record data, she could have pictures taken, then we could publish that over the winter time and get more interest developed in the garden. Business? I don't know.
With the new website too. I mean, it does have it on the website as an amenity, but you can certainly play it up more, believe me.
We could also invite someone from the University of Minnesota to come,
The Arboretum's just right down the road, yeah.
you know. I know that the Master Gardener Club, they do Saturdays. I'm sure they might do something during the weeks, and that's typically when they work.
But one of the complaints was that they wanted the soil amended and maybe some fencing, whatever. And one of the things we talked about in our committee was we were gonna check with the city of Chaska to see if they, and you haven't heard anything, to see if they're at all interested in joining us with that. And he hasn't heard anything yet. Justin hasn't. And that's one of the things. And I have a friend who uses Eden Prairie's community gardens every year, and I sent her an email. She does a lot of traveling. She probably hasn't even paid any attention, but I wanted to know what she liked, because she was picky about which site she went to apply for her plot. So I think you have to look at a lot of different things, and I think you would get more people if it was more accessible, or if it was even known about. I don't know. I didn't know we had a community garden either until I joined the board.
I played basketball over in Minnehaha Academy a lot in the fall and summer, and that's obviously in Minneapolis, and they have huge garden plot right off one of those back roads right before Minnehaha Academy High School. And this is downtown Minneapolis area, and it's very visual with signs, and all the plots were being used, and there was corn and beans and flowers, and there's all sorts of things. And I'm thinking to myself, we're more in the suburbs. I feel like we could probably be at that level, whether we get there or not. But here, this downtown Minneapolis by Minnehaha Academy has this nice garden plot for the community, and so I don't know. I think there's options of making it more visual and visible. Maybe I don't know what that would be, but
Well, I've talked to 3 different communities, and we have the largest plots. Ours is 20 by 30. Most of them are 10 by 10. So that's really an amenity if someone wants a big garden.
Or we can get more garden plots there.
or we can
Cut
get
it
more
down.
garden plots away. Yeah.
I think my biggest challenge with it is looking at an amenity, not so much as a money maker, if you will, but trying to spend it most wisely. Obviously, we want people to, be supportive of our expenditures and know that we're putting the value where residents are most, they feel most rewarded in it. But we have to kind of change our mindset a little bit, because I think some people have looked at amenities like the garden plots and said that we spend too much money doing it, it's too much of an expense, so we should get rid of it. But we have to understand that, again, it's an amenity. It's just like having a pavilion at Lake Grace. We can't just look at it as something we're spending money on. It's something we are investing in for people. So it's a little bit, it's challenging, because I even had the same challenge with it.
Are some of these people in townhomes, apartments, are they actually homeowners, or renting houses, or do they have backyards?
Probably. It's
Some
probable.
may.
That's the point I was gonna make, is that, the garden plots are really, for me, they'd be beneficial to that high density area that we have over,
Yeah.
by the lake there.
Yeah.
And
The townhomes.
I don't think we've done a good job promoting it.
The
So that's why I
apartments.
made the suggestion that we use some of our resources we have, such as the gardener, and, I see work she's done, and she can, in a 4x4 little thing, she can grow a lot of food.
I see that growing into more of not just a garden with the gardener, but, there's some, little events you can have, every first Tuesday of every month, the gardener puts on a little symposium on how to make your flowers at home look better.
Well, to your point, we got the U of M right down the road too. I'm sure they would gladly come out here and.
It's a great opportunity for us to take a look at this asset that we have, get some promotion behind it,
Yep.
do a really good job at it, get it in the paper, get it, get articles published, that it's a big benefit for our community,
So rather than try, so here's a thought. For our committee, one thing we've been tasked with is some people have said, well, maybe we should move it, because maybe then we'd get more use out of it. Or maybe then it'd be better. And I'm just speaking from what I've heard people say. Maybe the better conversation is what can be done right now to help promote it, and not just say that we have a garden plot, let's see how many people use it. So it's a little bit of a mindset change here of why not promote it versus say that it's broken, so now we need to fix it. Right? Is that kind of what we're getting at here?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Carrie, did all the plots get used?
This year, about 3/4 of them.
3/4, okay.
But how many plots are there, and how many were unique users?
There's 48 total, and I would say every year there's about maybe 20, maybe 15 or 20 that are the same people that you have the same plots. The rest are people that come, they don't even end up planting because it's a lot of work, or they end up planting
They'll
half a
plant.
year.
Do they have one plot or more than one plot?
Most have one. There's very few that have more than one, but there's 2 families that have 3 or 4.
Yeah, and see that, for me, that's, you know, once we promote it, it actually, that's gonna be an issue. It needs to be one plot per, you know,
Yep, if it
per
starts.
household. And then, you know, after so long, then we can open it up, but
Does the Chaska Herald have a spot for free community things that you can put in free? No? Free little
I don't know.
something? Okay. I might check into that, because if they do, we can certainly put something in there at some point.
So if we're advertising in the Chaska Herald, does that mean we're opening it up to Chaska, or is it just for Jonathan?
I have no idea. I just was asking the question.
Right?
I don't know. It is not just for, it is for just for Jonathan.
But if the city goes in with us,
Well, that's different.
it
That's
won't
a
be
whole
just
different
Jonathan.
thing.
Right.
We don't know that yet. So,
I like,
I do know, so what I have heard is that, you know, the city, I think what they're more focused on is, you know, other
I
things.
was going to say Fireman's
parks.
Park.
They also, I don't know exactly what we'll get to with the city, but I do know that we have a community garden, and I've always thought that when we try to look for a partner in something, if it's not theirs, why would they try to help us?
Because it would be part of theirs. We'd have to move it. I don't know. We don't know what they're going to say.
I
well,
think
what
it's a
do we,
very, very interesting topic. We've come full circle in almost a year. There was a request to revitalize it, put some money in, the board allocated some money.
There is still board money allocated.
Then the winds changed, and then the request changed, and now we want fences and all this other stuff. Like, I think as a board, we need to determine, after consulting with our constituents, what is the best use, best and highest use for this particular land. And then we just need to do a good job at it. You know, whether that be promoting, or whether that be, you know, helping, utilization.
Okay, well, we'll continue our conversation around it. We'll look for outreach and involvement from members. But we need to figure out for this year what we're gonna do.
well, I think we need signs. I like Slate's idea. First of all, we need signs so people know it's there.
I like that,
I'm sorry, Judy, you said we need
a sign,
Signs,
signs.
so people know that it's there.
the Jonathan
So we
Community
need a
Garden.
marketing strategy. You wanna market it. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm
just
talking
thinking we
about
got
a
a
sign.
website, like just put a sign up in the yard, like, I mean, we don't allow that, we don't allow homeowners to do that. Garden this way.
Big yellow arrow with lights.
Garden down the hill.
I mean, we've got a mailing that's going out here to every
said-
owner. I mean, there's
Could we add it
there's
to
things
that?
that we
No,
can
it-
throw in there
it's
for
not
very
good.
little money.
It won't get that mailing for this, for the election, but I could, but,
When's the next newsletter coming out?
yeah, that's going to
March.
the newsletter.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Oh, prime time. Get that spot reserved.
Why don't you?
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Smart.
April showers.
So have you, not to keep going on this subject, sorry, but have you, we still got money allocated towards the soil. Is that
But
something
that's
that?
not just the soil, but
Right.
revitalization of the
Okay.
garden plots up to $10,000.
Is that something that we we need to look doing now, or or?
In terms of like making the decision to do it or not?
Yeah,
Well, the
spring.
decision's already been made, unless someone wants to just rescind it all together.
I couldn't remember if we made a decision to do that in the spring or.
We tabled
No,
it.
we didn't say when it would be done, it just is earmarked. So, I don't really know if there's anything more to say on it, just
We
know
need
that
signs.
we need signs.
Yep.
All
we need
right.
signs.
we'll continue to work on it and report back to the board on what comes about it. But really, this first meeting that we had as a committee was to really get a better idea of how we organize and where we need to go with it, so. Moving on to new business. Board action required. The nominating committee, which I think we had as that was sent to us via email, and I do not believe or is it here?
No, I didn't use mine.
I didn't print it off, but we have it in front of us, at least some of us do, not I, but, Clint, looks like you're the chair of the nominating committee. I open the floor up to you.
Yes, John and Kay and I met a few times and talked about prospects that we had and put together a list, and it was on the thing that I emailed out earlier today. We came up with 3 nominations. 2 of them are existing members of the board, and the third was Emily Rome Welter, and we reached out to her, and she seems interested, so if we can put her on the committee as like the nominee, we are for it. And otherwise, we were going to nominate Justin Sharpen and Stephen Wolf, as long as they are accepting of the nomination, of course, and wanting to do it.
I appreciate your nomination, and I accept. I don't know if we have to formally accept this evening, but,
All right.
Ditto. Well, that was real formal.
Yeah, way to be formal on
I
that.
think,
and just to.
formalized, I would have to put an application in. Obviously.
Yeah, we'd have to put an application in, and then we also want to point out that people can, obviously submit their applications for approval of nomination at our annual meeting. People can be nominated from the floor, but Carrie will be sending out the announcements of, how our board election process plays out, and that's going to be starting before we know it. So, starting next month, it's something that's going to be first and foremost. And it's a really exciting time because at the annual meeting, I know some of us, we've all been there. I think, Kay, maybe you haven't, but
I was at a bad one.
it's a great opportunity to really meet face-to-face with members, and they might have someone to nominate from the floor. They have an opportunity to weigh in at different forums, so I'll just let everyone know that our next monthly meeting is February 2018, February 13th. And then I believe our annual meeting is the 20th of February, and registration starts at 6 p.m. With the meeting starting at 6:30. Not something that every board member has to come up here and sit up here for, but you're encouraged and welcome to do that. But I'll be presiding over the meeting with our CPA management team, and we'll have our council here as well. Okay, well, thank you, Clint. Thank you, John and Kay. As you know, I just want to point out that every year, or an election, a nominating committee has to be put in place as part of our bylaws. And nominations for the election of the board of directors shall be made by the nominating committee. And like I said earlier, nominations may also be made from the floor at the annual meeting of the members. Okay. Next item, is that it, Clint?
That is all, unless anyone has questions.
So on page 28, we have a request from action. Carrie, do you want to help us with this?
Sure. This individual wanted to come tonight, but he couldn't. He was just been a little frustrated with the paths, and I've had probably a handful of calls with the same concern as to why the paths had not been cleared at all this year. And I've told them all the same, that our contract says 2 inches or more before our vendor comes out to do any clearing of the trails. Some of them understand, some of them don't. We just included a sheet on here showing the record of observation for precipitation, showing that nothing's been over 2 inches. So I just wanted to bring it to the board, just so you guys knew the concerns. And just maybe when our contracts are coming up, which will be this next month now, it's something to maybe consider if we want to change that, maybe to 1 inch or 1.5 inches. I don't know. It's a hard one, because if it snows a lot, at an inch, we're paying a lot of money. Unless we're doing a flat monthly rate, then it wouldn't matter, and maybe we should change it down to an inch, or what, you know, something that's more convenient for the residents.
So the city, their standard is 2 inches as
Yep,
well?
It is.
Most parks, or
Yeah.
most places are 2 inches.
Yeah, and if you look, the reason, we actually, Carrie and I were looking at this, and we actually reached out to our vendor, and the reason why it was not plowed on December 4th is because the temperature got up to, the ambient temperature that day got up to 51 degrees.
Right.
And you had snow melt.
Yeah.
So it
Is
was
there-
2.1 inches, but
Is
this
there
is,
specific areas in the neighborhood that they're complaining? Is there like certain spots or certain trails that were?
Some people don't even leave where they're from, they just call and
Oh,
whatever.
if,
But I would say a lot, you know, neighborhood 1, neighborhood 6, 10, actually really everywhere.
okay.
People walking their dogs is the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Neighborhood
but-
8, I've had really, people from all neighborhoods call.
If,
Yeah, I've had three people call me. And
Yeah.
it's not so much the snow, it's the ice.
Ice. And people have complained, and I did say, you know, unfortunately it was so warm, and then we got all that rain, and then it froze. And people said, you know, can we go out and salt and sand? But to salt and sand trails, for one, we don't have the equipment, and for two, that would be just outrageous to go out and sand all the trails.
right,
well, I
So-
think it would be bad for plant life and
Sure,
vegetation with runoff, in
absolutely,
my
because it would
opinion.
kill all the
Correct.
grass and stuff.
Environmentally, I don't think that's a very responsible way of
Right.
managing our land, in my opinion.
In fact, one lady says to me that she walks every day, and she said when they're icy, I just get out, I just walk in the street.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's so.
Right? Yeah, it's hard, but it's also Minnesota, and it's just the way it is. I
Right.
mean, you just gotta use caution, and I know some people said they fell on the ice, but that can happen in a parking lot, you know, it's a hard one.
Stefan, in your 6 years on the board, has this, have you ever had any seasons where this has been similar, where we haven't had a lot of snow, but we've had ice? And can you help us with that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So this actually comes up every single year. And every single year, we talk about the same things. 2 inches versus 1.5 inches versus an inch, and what the impact would be. And every year, we stand pat on 2 inches for a couple reasons. One, that's what the city does for their trails. And then so why would we plow a portion of the trail where they're gonna run into ice and the other portion? That's the same thing. You know, it's just, it's tough, but as long as you clearly communicate that the standard's 2 inches, if it snows within two inches or more, within 48 hours, they'll come by, they'll clear the trail. You'll still get the melt and the freeze over, so there'll still be ice.
Yep.
It's just a hazard of
Even
being a
today,
Minnesotan.
they're clear today, but if it gets cold enough
We're
tonight,
hurting
it
people.
might be icy
That's
again.
exactly what's gonna happen.
Yep.
It's gonna freeze tonight and they're gonna
Yep.
get slippery.
So
And
I
they're
would
clear.
recommend that the board stand pat.
Yep.
If the board wants to really investigate this again, I'd recommend that one of these here be put together for all year, and then you can then determine what the cost would be based on the incidence of 2 inches versus 1.5 inches.
Excuse me, we're gonna be closing the library. Is there a key among you to close the doors, or do you want us to lock up?
I think, Bill,
There's a staff member here.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we should definitely continue tracking this climatological observation document, Carrie, and
okay?
I think it's a good board research initiative to make sure that, you know, we're doing our due diligence to figure out if it's feasible, and plausible, and possible.
I guess my only recommendation would be, the simple thing is, if they're gonna call in, just ask what neighborhood they're actually at. 'Cause I think we can, or not just their neighborhood, I'm sorry, the areas that they're talking about, because I think we can collect that data. If we find that 5 out of 10 are in one area, well, then maybe we need to reevaluate something. I don't know, I'm just
Yeah,
throwing that
you
out
want
there.
the
Maybe
end
collect
goals.
that,
Or throw some sand down,
or yeah, maybe it's something that we can do
Which
for.
I did have a couple multiple calls in neighborhood 8 by their mail station, because they're kind of on an incline, so Vern went out. Put
Yeah,
something
that-
in.
Yep, mail
That
station
mail
makes.
station.
It is,
That's
it's an awful.
different.
Mail stations, that's a tricky one, yep.
I
But
mean, we have salt and sand there, but because we got a couple reports, I just sent him out and said,
That's
just go
a-
sand those areas.
That area,
That's by Idaho House.
it's, I don't know what we do with that, but you guys should take a walk over there one day.
It should be just part of our full-time maintenance person's job.
sand-
I mean, we have 2 or 3 mailboxes that we know are on an incline, that we know have the same issue all the time.
And he does, every time it snows, I.
Even
will
with
work
sand, I
Yep.
mean, I've walked up that and it is incredibly steep.
I think just collecting that data will help us
Sure.
maybe in the future if we need to.
Do we need anything formal?
Yeah, we probably should here. to
Thank
help
you for
close the
bringing
loop.
this to our attention.
Yeah.
That's
We
it.
thank the resident for bringing this to our attention. I'd like to entertain a motion to reject the request for action to make any changes to our current policy on snow events.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Calendar of events. I think I've asked this before, Carrie, but invoicing sub-associations.
Yep.
Is that for some of the agreements that Jonathan has with some that we reimburse a portion?
Yep.
Okay.
There's 9 associations that we bill separate, or we bill monthly, and then they collect those dues from the residents. And they just write one check for, like, say, Waybear Apartments is one of them. They
Okay.
just write us one check monthly.
Gotcha.
Carrie, could we change the year on that?
Yeah, we've asked several times.
You sure? Yeah.
Jeez. Hey, anytime.
Okay, we do not have any other written reports this evening. Steve, do you have anything you want to add under the treasurer or financial conversation?
Reviewed the invoices. Didn't see any troubles.
Okay.
So financials will come out the 25th, and I'll forward them to you two. And I did notice today, when I was going over the budget, that in the gardening, under the gardening GL code, there was a $17,000, $238.25. I think that, talked to Kirk about it today, it was the expenditure from the bridge, the erosion issue that we did. So he's recoding it to landscaping, so when you do see that, don't
Should be
be.
capital, right?
Well, that was gonna be my next question, is do you want it capitalized,
Yeah.
or, so,
The whole project should be capitalized.
yeah, that's what I thought too. So he wanted me to ask that.
Okay.
Capital. And what were you saying? You were still talking. You're done?
So that is taken care of.
Okay, so is the audit currently underway?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, he'll be here at the annual.
We typically, the executive committee will sometimes have some dialogue with the CPA.
Okay,
It's not really my responsibility, but we'll talk offline on that.
okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Was there any recommendation from the management company for the auditor to test?
Not that I know of.
So they're just performing the standard audit, there's been no dialogue,
Nope,
so there's no concerns?
nope.
Okay. With that said, I think we've concluded the open session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the January 2018 meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.